in this section, we're going to talk. I think will we just do one bold prediction each, lads, or do you want to do two, or what's the crack? Because I feel like we'll be here all night if we do two. Usually I'll be going mad. I'll start off. Patriots will have under 5.5 wins this season, and Mac Jones will be out at the end of the year. I think the way that they have prepared this season is stunning, and I know it's only pre-season, but I just have not been impressed with the way that Mac Jones has played in those pre-season games, albeit it was quite limited. And Bill Belichick looks checked out, lads. This is going to be the worst year in New England for a long time, which is great because they'll go and get a incredible talent next year in a quarterback heavy draft, which suits everybody here. But I think this is the year the Patriots struggle, and as I said in the preview show for the East, I think that they will be quite close to the New York Jets in terms of win record. But the funny thing is that even a bold prediction, Colin, at this point?
Given Bill Belichick's history, yeah, it would be. I mean, it will be obviously interesting to see how the Patriots do, but if they went under the 5.5, that would be a very, very big story. I think mine is probably less bold, but at the same time, I think Mike McCarthy loses his job before the end of the season. I think he's probably the first guy to go. The Cowboys have just had really an off season to forget. They haven't added really any major talent. They've lost a huge number of pieces. That O-line, which has kind of been the core component of their identity for so long, and one of the reasons that they have continually been competitive, it has been shredded. And I think we talked about it. Dak is a guy who struggles to deal with change. So I think for that reason and the way in which they fell off last year, Jerry meddling, he just can't leave it alone. I think there's going to be a lot of disquiet in Dallas because they will have, I think, blown a really good roster that they had a few years ago. And they're now going backwards. They're going to need to get somebody in there who can rebuild it. But the issue is that the talk is of Sean Payton. If Sean Payton goes in and Jerry's still there, Jerry's going to meddle. That won't last long, no matter how talented Sean Payton is. So I am really intrigued to see what happens in Dallas this year.
I'm following the same line as Michael in terms of an over and under, and I'm not sure if it is a bold statement, but I looked at the Seattle Seahawks over and under is 5.5. I'm going to say they win 9 games, if not more. So I'm just not buying into this falling off the cliff of the team as a whole. I know the quarterback situation is a concern, and luckily we all felt that Jimmy G was going there, but I still think that they have enough players there to cause a lot of upsets, and I think Carroll will be motivated to shock a lot of people. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to go to the playoffs anymore, which I did last week, which was on the base that Jimmy G was going to be the quarterback, but I still think they're going to have a good season and win a minimum of 9 games. I'll have egg in my face come October.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's probably a few we're going to throw out in our division picks or even in this segment that we're going to go back to at the end of the year and go, why the hell did I pick that in relation to it? Do you know, it's tough on bold predictions. Maybe when we get onto our championship game picks, you might think a couple of my suggestions there are a little bit bold, but to save ruining them, I think wildcards in AFC are going to be super competitive. I know they were last year, but they're going to be super competitive. So we're going to have at least 1 or 2 sides miss out that you wouldn't necessarily expect, especially not with how they're loaded in relation to this. I say this genuinely. I say this from the bottom of my heart. I'm not saying this because of the presence of 2 other gentlemen on this pod, but my bold prediction would be that the loaded Broncos miss out on the playoffs altogether. I just think there's going to be too many numbers and they need a bit more time to get it all together. But like I say, guys, you know, they got a great home field advantage. They got a great start to the season. So I could be looking with egg on my face very shortly thereafter.
Do you want to go one more quick round? Bold predictions, yeah? Yeah, I take it as a yes. Okay. CeeDee Lamb has got more passing touchdowns than Cooper Kupp. He emerges as the top wide receiver in the NFC, because let's face it, the NFC is trash in comparison to the AFC this year, and there is no reason why a Tom Brady shouldn't be getting MVP. There's no reason why a half-competent Cowboys team should not be at least getting the wild card spot, even if the Eagles do win the NFC East. So I think CeeDee Lamb's going to have a breakout year. I'm excited to see what he can do, especially now that Cooper's in Cleveland. So let's see what can happen with the Cowboys. But CeeDee Lamb, for me, is going to have a hell of a year. Draft him in fantasy. And I still think Cooper Kupp's going to have a good year as well. That shows you how good of a year that CeeDee Lamb's going to have. Colin?
I am going to go with the fact that I still believe in Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan, and I really don't understand why you keep Jimmy G around, because he's in the building, but I think that Kyle Shanahan can make magic happen, and I think that Trey Lance, whilst not having the sort of second season that we saw from Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, will have a really good year, and I think will be cemented as QB1. I don't think Jimmy will get a look in, and Jimmy will be able to move on next year, and people will still look at him as a very good QB, and he'll get a nice big contract.
You could probably throw this, you could have thrown this one into the bounce back category. I'm going to Saquon Barkley in his rookie year had 1,307 yards, 97 receptions, 15 touchdowns. He will break that this year. He looks like he's fully fit and back, and the offensive line has been completely rebuilt. I think he'll get more of an opportunity this year, and he'll break those stats.
We're all talking about positive, so let me drag it down into the depths of despair. Who are going to be the worst teams in the NFL? And I am going to say that the Atlanta Falcons will pick number 1 in next year's draft, swiftly and quickly followed by the Chicago Bears picking number 2.
I knew Mark was going to go down the road tonight of the Falcons. That's why I said I'd aired a bit of black and red, just to kind of give the poor Falcons fans a little bit of hope, and also the fact that this week United beat Arsenal, so it was got to throw in a bit of red and black there as well.
Sorry, Michael. Just to say, in that segment, Brian's Seahawks pick, the boldest of all of the bold picks. I would be amazed if they go anywhere near that. I think they will go nowhere near 5.5.
No, Colin, it's not bold. It's not bold. It begins with a B. It's bonkers. That's what it is.
Let's look at like a player, just one player. It can be a rookie or somebody that's been in the league for over a year that we're excited to see this season that we haven't talked about in this broadcast yet or in any of these segments. I'm excited to see Justin Fields. See a lot of talk every day from Bears fans online about, well, I'll give you an example. Around the time of the draft last year and around the time of the draft this year and the expectations, and since the drafts happened, there's been a lot of talk about, oh well, the team's not ready. There's no protection for Justin Fields, but yet last year he was the best thing since sliced bread. And as a man in the north here who has nutty crust bread, I can tell you if he's better than that, he must be half decent. I'm excited to see what he can do, because this is a young bucko that can run if he's under pressure, and I just want to see, has his accuracy improved? And the funny thing is, I think, and I hope I'm wrong, I think the Chicago media and the Chicago fan base will throw him under the bus by November, when he should be given at least another full season, even if they were to go 0-17. I have the Bears picking first next year. I think they're complete trash. They're the worst team in the league by a country mile, and they deserve it. They haven't built around them. So I am looking forward to seeing it. I can't wait. It's going to be great. And I can't wait to hopefully go back to Chicago, because the Bears organization are the best organization to deal with, and they're so welcoming. But the team aren't great at the minute.
No, I mean, they're picking up the pieces from the previous regime. For me, somebody who is getting a lot of preseason buzz on a team that, I had the infamous rant last year, but Dameon Pierce, a running back out of the 4th round, looks like he has Javonte Williams-like ability to make players miss, and I think in Lovie Smith's system should get an awful lot of touches. I think between him and Davis Mills, it's going to be really interesting to see the Texans kind of offense. It's probably based off of a second-year quarterback who was a surprise last year and a running back who was taken in the fourth round. Was it just preseason? Was it that he was playing against the ones who really weren't that focused and the 2s and 3s? Or, as we've often seen with running backs, is this a guy who, fell and when he shouldn't have? But I think he could be really surprising and could give Texans fans some much deserved and much needed joy.
I'm interested to see Khalil Mack. He's been traded from the Bears to the Chargers. We spoke highly, we're speaking about how the expectation on this Chargers team is there, and defensively let's be fair, the defense was the reason why they weren't in the playoffs last year, and they've done a lot of work. I mean, they've spent massive money bringing Jackson from the Patriots in free agency. They've bolstered up the defensive line to help with the run. But Khalil Mack on the other side of Bosa, are we going to see the Mack that was really good in Oakland at the time, and then obviously when he went to the Bears initially when the Bears were in the playoffs that year, he had a really strong season, and he's had a few injury issues since then, so he really hasn't developed or come back to the player that we're used to seeing. So in a team that should be, as Michael's alluded to, should be really aggressive in terms of trying to go to the Super Bowl, it'd be interesting to see if he's worthy of that trade come the end of the season.
So Brian wanted to see the return of the Mac. I feel this is unfair. There are so many storylines. There's so many players. There's so many options I'm excited about. I'm excited to see what Kevin O'Connell's offense does with the great talents in Minnesota, such as Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and of course, Kirk Cousins, as well as Dalvin Cook there. I'm excited to see if Tua is going to come back to life now with new opportunity in Miami, new investment in the team out there. Equally, even though I don't think it's going to make playoffs, what Russell Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett can do in their combination in Denver, or Devontae Adams in his new home with Derek Carr. I always have to remember Derek Carr in Las Vegas. But probably the most scintillating and exciting player for me this year, and Michael threw out Justin Fields. I'll throw out another quarterback there. We did mention him slightly earlier on. I think Colin brought him up. Trey Lance and the 49ers. That is the most fascinating player for me in this entire season. What Kyle Shanahan and the brain trust there can do with him and how he's evolved. In terms of modern comparison, when I think of the amount of playing time he had last year, maybe the best comparison, I'm not saying he's going to play like him, was Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes in his rookie season played very little, few snaps, but then he played predominantly in week 17. Then he won the starting job. Trey Lance, limited playing time. Now in his second season, his sophomore season, probably has more growth to go than Mahomes in fairness, but now he's been given the big job, beating out Jimmy Garoppolo for that starter's job. So fascinating to see it, especially with that offensive system and the offensive genius of Kyle Shanahan that resides there in Santa Clara.
Surprised nobody done the Jimmy G Bowl prediction by week 18 or week 8. Sorry. Let's get one more storyline each before we make our picks for division, wildcard, Super Bowl, etc. I will go very quickly here. I'll just sort of touch on what Mark said for one of his bold predictions. I'm not high on the Raiders in terms of a storyline this year. I think their offensive line is really, really going to let them down. Derek Carr does not work well under pressure. They at least admitted that Alex Leatherwood was a bust. I know Colton Miller is elite, or arguably at his position, but they don't have enough talent stacked there. Also, you got Josh McDaniels. Also, you got Las Vegas, and things happen in Las Vegas every day, never mind every weekend. And also, players might not gel, and they've got a fantastic core unit there, but it may be too soon for them. I think in the division that they're in, I think they're going to struggle. I think they could win 6 or 7 games personally, and I think that could be the storyline of the year. The storyline of the year, if that did happen, hypothetically, would be how long is Josh McDaniels given in Vegas? Will he trot back up to Billy, who doesn't have anyone to help him at the minute, or let's see what happens. Colin, what's your storyline?
I think this is going to be a season of goodbyes in the league. I think it is Tom Brady's last year in the NFL. I don't believe he will play on next year. I think depending on how things go, it could be Pete Carroll's last year. Pete is 70 years of age, and how much longer can you keep going back to the well? everyone is going to have seen, right, the Alex Ferguson where you make the announcement and then that you're going to retire and then things go pear-shaped. So nobody's going to announce it too early. I think I don't expect the Patriots to have a terrible season, but how long more will Bill Belichick continue to go back to the well for? There's an awful lot of kind of NFL superstars, be they coaching staff, be they older players, who I think are coming to the end. It's going to be a little bit of a transformative year. Many of them may see success in the end, but I think we will be starting the 2023 season without Thomas Edward Patrick Brady.
My final story on the season will be that this year will be the first year in which Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have a losing record, and I would put that down to large parts to maybe by week 4, week 5, Kenny Pickett will be the quarterback, and they are going to be moving in the direction of trying to get a good evaluation on him after his first season, and therefore they will. I'm not saying they're going to give the season away, but there's other things and other factors as to why the team doesn't win the game in which we're used to seeing with Mike Tomlin as head coach, and it won't be any reflection of him as a coach. It's just the fact that the team offensively won't be as well. I wouldn't say they were dynamic last year with Big Ben, but we've seen a good Steelers offense over the years, and we won't see that this year. God, the Steelers fans are going to be coming for me.
Just to remind you folks that we are. Yeah, go on ahead.
No, work away, Michael.
Just a reminder, we're presented by Casty Travel. You can search Casty Travel online and check out an NFL holiday, and check out the link in the bio wherever you're on YouTube or podcast or whatever. Check out NFL Game Pass. There's some great matchups coming up this weekend, week 1, that you cannot watch in TV in Ireland or in the United Kingdom, wherever you live. Okay. In this next section,
so Michael, I'll just wrap it all up then with my suggestions and predictions.
Oh my God! Sorry. Do you know what? Can I apologize? But you're going to end this segment, so please go on ahead. My bad. You know, Mark, you were going that long. I just forgot. You know what I mean? So it's my bad. And this is.
Do you know what it is, Michael? It's that you were blaspheming Josh McDaniels and trying to get him fired before he's even coached the game. So I was like, come on, man, give him a break.
Well, I mean, he did come to London and cheat and go to the cricket ground and set up cameras. I mean, there was multiple things.
Like, the Broncos do have a history of cheating, Michael. So it's very sad to see that happen to them again.
Let's get
to
your point. Come on,
I'll move on past Josh McDaniels. Bill Belichick, Colin, I think, yes, will surprise everybody one day. But I was just checking. I think he's 26 wins if you combine regular season and postseason behind Don Shula. So there's a little bit of me that's like, even if he stumbles to 8 wins over the next 4 seasons and beats Shula, there might be a little bit of that play in his head because he's already breaking something. He said 10 years ago he'd never coach into his 70s like Marv Levy. Sure enough, here he is, and he's doing it still. So you never know what happens. But for me, the underlying story, or another underlying story that's going hidden or missed, or just one other one to mention, is the remarkable underplaying of the 2 participants in the Super Bowl last year. If you go to most consensus sites, it's the Packers or it's the Bucs. The Bucs are going to walk away. They're prohibitive favorites in the NFC. People aren't talking about the Rams enough. It does feel like they're being overlooked. But they're not being overlooked even half the extent that the Bengals have been. And yes, the Bengals didn't make the splashiest moves in the AFC in the offseason, but they did continue to shore up that offensive line, which the world and his wife obviously could identify from the playoff run last year as their biggest weakness, with some very smart moves, very good acquisitions in free agency from Tampa Bay in terms of guard as well, shoring up that interior line. So the fact they get to the Super Bowl and they're almost completely written off by most people, even ourselves, we all had, except for Colin, I believe, the Ravens to win the AFC North. So only Colin still believes in them there. So that's kind of an amusing narrative as we move into week 1 when you're seeing who's going to be pumped up by the media, including ourselves, and who is not.